The three-way dance at the time was built as the biggest event in ECW. It had months of build-up from January to April, and the big main event was the triple tag, with Taz and Sabu as two of the competitors in a tag team. But by surprise, Sabu no-showed the event, to go work in NJPW and do a gig there. So this obviously angered a lot of people backstage, and Taz gave Paul an ultimatum: you either fire him or I'm leaving. So on an episode of ECW, Heyman ended up firing Sabu publicly. But later in the year, Sabu finally made his long-awaited return back to ECW. And the crowd welcomed him, but this really angered Taz, so he aligned himself with Bill Alfonso and began the Path of Rage. So in '96, Taz called out Sabu constantly, but he never showed. After his matches, during promos, he wanted a match with Sabu. So on an episode of ECW, Taz leaked that soon there was going to be a big show coming up, and he wanted him and Sabu to be in the main event. And he said that Sabu isn't going to have any choice but to face him. So later on that night, during a triple tag match, Taz went out to the ring and choked out Sabu's partner, Rob Van Dam. But on November to November '96, Taz said he is not leaving the ring until Sabu comes out. But then Bob Ortiz came down and they said they were trying to start the next match and they want him out of the ring. But Taz didn't give a shit. He pushed him to the ground and he demanded Sabu to come out to the ring. And then Todd Gordon came in and he tried to exclude Taz from the ring, but he ended up getting choked out. And then Paul Heyman and the Dudleys came down to help out Todd Gordon, and then he got suplexed and choked out as well. It really shows how untouchable they were making Taz. Like, he just choked out the commissioner and the owner. So while Paul was in the Taz mission, the lights go out. And then the lights come back on. It's Sabu, and him and Taz are facing off in the ring with the crowd going crazy. This is one of the best crowd reactions there's ever been in ECW. Taz himself even said he could feel the ring moving. This is honestly one of my favorite moments in ECW, but as soon as they went to lock up, the lights go out. And they were gone. The crowd was a little annoyed by this, but it was still a great moment. So going into 1997, Taz hasn't wrestled in a couple of weeks, so he cuts a promo reassuring everyone that the war between him and Sabu isn't over. So on the night ECW invaded Raw, there was a match between Taz and Mikey Whipwreck. The match was short, but the highlight of the match was the iconic moment when Sabu jumped off the Big R. And I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like this gets forgotten for some reason. But before Sabu could get into the ring, he got carried away by Team Taz. So a couple weeks later, in a match between RVD and Sabu versus the Eliminators, Taz ended up coming out and hitting RVD with a chair and choking him out right in front of Sabu, exemplifying what he sees he's going to do to him as well, while Sabu gets hit with total elimination. And now they're both laid out in the ring. So on another episode, Sabu and Taz are facing off in the ring, surrounded by the locker room, and before they go to lock up, they get pulled apart. And this just added even more hype to the match. This was Cena and Lesnar before Cena and Lesnar. But on the same episode, Sabu gets into the ring and breaks the silence and calls out Taz instead. But then Alfonso comes out and says that's not going to happen, and he slaps Sabu. And he ends up getting clipped and put through a table. But when Sabu gets back into the ring, Taz comes in and they almost get their hands on each other. But again, it's broken up by the locker room. So in the next episode, Taz comes out, absolutely clears the ring, and calls out Sabu. But this time it's different. Sabu immediately comes out and gets into the ring. But yet again, the locker room is there, and they break it up. If you can think of another rivalry that had this intensity and hype to it, please put it down below. And here we have it, Taz's final promo in his dojo before the match. Honestly, I loved his promos in the dojo. It just came off really authentic and he looked like a fucking beast. And he threatens to choke Sabu out. Now we finally have it, Barely Legal 97, the most hype match in ECW history. So Taz comes out, the orange lighting, the orange smoke, Team Taz, but Sabu doesn't even make an entrance, he just comes in straight away. The crowd starts getting louder, everyone starts clapping, we have an iconic moment with the face-off, and they start brawling. Joey Styles also mentions that Sabu is the first person to ever block the Taz mission. And immediately Sabu gets busted open. Sabu doing his normal shenanigans, diving off the top rope into the crowd. They start brawling and making their way through the crowd over the rail. Sabu also hits a few good looking springboard dives, and he also gets suplexed back over the rail. And now there's a table set up, Sabu tries to put Taz through it, but ultimately gets reversed and he gets put through it instead. But at one point Sabu does a top rope springboard Hurricane Rana, and I feel like this is where the match really picks up. He also does a leg drop off the top rope. So then the match continues, Taz gets back into the ring, and he goes crazy. You got the fucking, I don't even know what to call the suplexes, but he does like 3 different types of suplexes. Sabu kinda lands on the back of his neck, which kinda makes you cringe. I also like at one point Sabu tried to leave the ring, which kinda shows how he wanted it on the outside while Taz wanted a mat wrestle. But even Sabu ends up doing his own suplex on Taz, and copies him by doing the Taz pose. And then even Sabu ends up locking on the Taz mission, but it gets reversed and Taz ends up suplexing Sabu. And then Taz gets behind him and locks on the Taz mission. Sabu's arm goes up once, twice, and 3 times, and Taz just chokes out Sabu. Taz did what he said he was going to do, but honestly I feel like Sabu should have gotten out of it at least once, but then again he did block it, which kind of protects the finisher and gives something to him. So after the match, Taz grabs a mic and gives respect to Sabu and says he wants to shake his hand. And Sabu does, he raises his arm and they congratulate each other. But then out of nowhere, RVD comes in and hits Taz from behind and they both start stomping on Taz. They set up a table and Sabu springboards off the top rope and puts Taz through it. And then while they're on the floor, Sabu locks on the Taz mission on Taz. And Bill Alfonso gets in the ring and raises Sabu's and RVD's arms, turning his back on Taz. RVD and Alfonso both cut promos talking about Monday Night etc. and all three of them leave the ring together. So did this match live up to the hype? I don't know, I really don't think it did. But that's not a bad thing. I mean, the expectations were so high that I don't think it was really possible. It had its flaws and a few botches, but I feel like the overall psychology of the match was really good. And watching it, it really felt like a big match. I feel like the crowd was subdued and they didn't really give the energy that the match was supposed to have, but I feel like they were drained because they had to sit through that garbage match of Douglas and Pitbull. But they were still into it, it's not like they were dead quiet. As for the finish of the match, I feel like the double turn was a really good idea, but I just didn't like how they portrayed it. I feel like it could have been done way better. But I did enjoy the overall match. If you want me to make a part 2, please like, because their rivalry doesn't end here. But thank you for making it to the end of the video, and thank you for watching.